Today on the Transplant Helper, we're going to be beginning a brand new video series basically entitled The Stress of Transplant. Now, if you're like I am, or like so many of you I know are viewing this program right now, whether you're pre or post-transplant patients, you're dealing with some kind of stress in your life. And that stress can come about for many different reasons. And so because of that, I want to start today in beginning to talk about many of the reasons why we experience the stress of transplant and how we can handle that as they come along. So if you're interested in that in any way, go ahead and stay tuned. Hey folks, welcome to Transplant Helper today. My name is Jim Merle, and today we are beginning a brand new video series, which will eventually become a playlist, albeit I won't do these necessarily consecutively, concerning the stress of transplant. Now, when I begin to think about this a little bit more, this is actually slightly different from a video I did a couple of weeks ago talking about how to handle the anxiety of transplant. You see, in my mind, anxiety comes about based on the unknown, based on things we do not know and we do not understand, whereas stress oftentimes comes about based upon what is known, what we do understand, but we just don't know how to handle it. So for that case, I think anxiety occurs more times than not pre-transplant, whereas stress may come about post-transplant. And so that's kind of how we're going to be looking at it today. Now, I appreciate a viewer who asked me to do this video based upon seeing the other video about anxiety. And so I've decided, yeah, we'll do that video and several more, because there's no way I can discuss all the stressors, if you will, that go along with post-transplant life in one episode. So today we're going to be starting out with the very first one, I think probably the biggest for all of us, and that is dealing with the financial stress of living the post-transplant life. So the financial stress of post-transplant life is probably going to be pretty much universal. Unless you're just unbelievably wealthy, you just got all the access to all the money and the funds in the world, probably at some point post-transplant, you're going to be facing quite a few medical bills and pharmacy bills, whatever, that are kind of going to, as we would say in the South at least, knock your socks off. You're not really going to be able to comprehend and understand the level or the huge bills that you may be seeing, again, based upon what your situation is. Now, I have no doubt in my mind, all of our situations are different. All of us are going to have different means that we start with versus what we end with and all. And certainly all of our insurances are different. So we're going to have out different things to deal with, whether it be the bills from the hospital, from the doctors, from the pharmacy, whatever. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but overall, there will be a level of financial burden that goes along with the wonderful gift of transplant. So with that said, let me begin the discussion today by giving you basically 3 things that you need to be aware of going into the process that will help you to deal with the financial stress that could be there in the end. The very first one is basically this: when you're facing financial difficulty, when the mailman drops by your house because he couldn't fit the mail in your mailbox, throws it in a bag in your living room floor like it's fan mail, and all that's there is bills, these are some of the things you need to keep in mind. And the very first one, very simply stated, is don't panic. Don't panic. And one of the best ways not to panic when those bills start rolling in is really just to be aware and understanding that they're probably going to come. Again, based on your insurance, they may be higher or lower, or maybe even non-existent. If that's the case, you're very blessed. And one of the best ways I think you can be aware of the cost of transplant is by going and sitting down with a financial counselor / a social worker connected with your transplant center. Now, hopefully, and for the majority of us, that occurred sometime pre-transplant. That is a part of the evaluation really involved sitting down with a counselor or a social worker and having them describe, and even for your one-on-one unique situation, talk about the potential costs of transplant. Now, if you've not had that yet, I've got a video I'll link to up here in the corners as well as in the description below that can help you with that was basically entitled The High Cost of Transplant. Now, not that it's a high cost and that it's not worth it, but there can be a lot of, again, financial burden that goes along with transplant. So you can go back and watch that video at the end. Maybe it'll help you out a little bit. But let me encourage you also that if you have not, or maybe you had the meeting and you didn't necessarily get all that was going on, if you've not sat down with a social worker or a financial counselor, particularly that knows transplant and knows our situations, you need to go back, whether it's 1 month or 10 years out of transplant. Go back to your transplant center and request a meeting with them, most likely free of charge, and let them help you out, because you do not need to panic when those bills come in. So number one, do not panic. Number two, and this may surprise you, so please listen to what all I have to say about it. Secondarily, don't pay. If you want to deal with the stress associated with a financial burden of transplant, don't pay. And by that, I do not mean don't pay your bills. If you owe medical bills to the hospital, to the doctors, and especially to the pharmacy, you need to pay those bills. As a matter of fact, not to pay those bills, in my opinion, and probably the opinion of most, would either be unethical and or immoral. You need to pay your bills. However, the reason I say don't pay, I'm simply trying to express that you don't need to just pay every bill that comes in as soon as it comes in. You need to really check these things out. For example, let's just make up an imaginary situation that you receive a bill from your hospital or doctor, whatever it is, for the sum of $1,000. And you get that bill in, you look down at it and you think, wow, I mean, that's more money than I've got on hand, but I don't want to go without paying my bill. I don't want my transplant center to turn me away, or my pharmacy not to give me my meds, so I need to pay it. And the first instinct is, if we've got access to that money or can scrape it up anywhere, we're going to write a check for the majority of, if not all of that, because a lot of those bills say, that they're due upon receipt. But you see, to pay those things immediately as soon as they come in can really be pulling us away from great opportunities. Number one, opportunities to find out if there's another way to pay for these things. Maybe there's some sort of charity service. Maybe there's some sort of a financial assistance that goes along with your transplant center that ultimately would have paid these balances, paid these co-pays, paid these bills altogether for you, and kept you from having to deal with that. In the second place, be aware, and most of us already are because of experience, be aware that when you receive these bills, sometimes they're just flat out mistakes. And I mean by that, oftentimes, and I'm not knocking them, they do the best that they can, but sometimes it comes down to how things are coded in the doctor's office or coded in the hospital. And when they submit that to your insurance company, maybe your insurance company doesn't quite understand why the procedure was done, or why the test was needed, or why the medication should be given. And so they reject those things really without questions being asked. And so one of the primary jobs, it has become my career post-transplant, and hopefully it will be for you after understanding it. One of our primary careers in life now should be to be willing to get on the phone, make the phone calls, call the doctor's offices, call the hospitals, call the pharmacies, whatever, and just simply ask questions and say, look, was this submitted to the insurance company? If so, why was it rejected? And what could be done about it? Maybe it could be recoded. Maybe it could be resubmitted. A lot goes in there. And basically, sometimes I've gotten bills where if you'll look carefully at the bill, it doesn't even mention an insurance company. That could possibly mean that they never ran it through your insurance to begin with. So mainly all I'm saying is don't pay. And by that I mean don't pay the bill immediately. Don't just jump out there and send them a check until you've done your investigation. You also might be able to work with them as far as making payment options available and what have you, but don't panic, don't pay. And in third place, don't be too proud. And by that I mean, don't be too proud to ask for help, whether it's financial assistance from your transplant center, whether it's reaching out for resources that are around you in helps of dealing with medications and all, dealing with co-pays and such. But don't be too proud to ask for help from your family, from your friends. You see, a lot of times these people are more than willing to help you out if they know there's a need, but they cannot help with something they're not aware of. So don't let pride stand in the way of letting the people around you help and to give you the assistance that you need. Now, I understand it's not easy to ask for help. I understand I don't ever want to be seen as a beggar, a freeloader, whatever somebody might call me, but certainly I've learned over time to just, let people in on what we're dealing with. That doesn't mean asking for anything. That just means when they come to you, as oftentimes our friends do, and say, look, do you need anything? Can I help in any way? You just respond with, matter of fact, there's a few things that I need to tie up, a few loose ends, a few bills that need to be paid, and I'll be more than happy to share those with you if you'd like. Kind of keep it lighthearted, but they just might help out. And sometimes it's random strangers, and I don't mean completely random strangers, but random strangers even are willing to help you out. I had a situation several years ago where I had to go to the emergency room, the ER, and I received a bill for the sum of $4,000 for what amounted to about an hour in the ER. And I had a good friend, an elderly lady, who actually went down to the hospital, asked them, without me knowing, does he have a balance? When they said, yeah, he owes $4,000, she wrote a check and paid it. What a wonderful gift. Awesome thing to do. And that's the types of things that sometimes people are willing to do if we'll let them know, or if we'll at least be willing to let them help us out. I've had people before, when bills come in, they say, hey, hand me your power bill, hand me your car payment. I'll send that off for you. I'll make sure it's paid because I want your needs to be met. Now, I know this has been kind of quick, and I really didn't give a lot of examples, but I'll assure you this will help to lift that burden, that financial burden, the stress that's sometimes going along with being a transplant. I hope this has helped you in some way, and if it has, how about go ahead and give me a big thumbs up, like this video, share it out with your friends, and especially comment below. How do you deal with the financial stress that goes with transplant? I'd love to hear about it. More than that, the transplant community, the transplant helper community would love to share in those ideas. Below this video, just go ahead, give me your answer, and I would be happy, more than happy, do all I can for you, and hopefully you would for our community too. Thank you so much for joining me today, and until next time, stay stronger, friends.